Whether you've got $0 to spend on marketing or you've got $500,000, you got to start somewhere and figure out what should your strategy be. So stick around and we're going to go through the top things that you should do.
Okay, I've been working like 3 jobs. Probably why I never see ya. Probably why I never have time for the fake friends I won't be ya. Been bottom, but it's looking like they took a time out. Okay, I'm working on a Wednesday, then up again the next day. So-and-so is popping, man, I skip him like he leg day.
All right, the first place to start with is your team. Every company is different, so what does your team look like? Are you a team of 5 marketing people and 20 salespeople outside? A lot of the companies, regardless of size, which is surprising to prospects and clients that we talk to, doesn't matter if you're 10 million or if you're a billion, the teams are relatively small from a marketing standpoint. It's usually only a company or a department of only 1 to maybe 2, 3, 4 people. Some of our biggest clients that we've had have the smallest marketing departments because that's just how that they've always done things. So don't be shocked if you have 0 marketing support, even if you're a 20, 50, $100 million a year company. So starting with your team, you have to understand what are the limitations of that team. If you've got people in-house that can do certain things, then you can use them. If you've got great content writers, if you've got people that can do graphic design, things like that, that are relevant and up to date, not doing things from 10 years ago in old school styles, but if you've got a team that's up to date, you can use them in these points that we're gonna go through. If you don't have a team, the next side of it's gonna be hiring an agency like ours to do the work for you. But what it's gonna come down to is the budget. So you either have 2 things, you either have time or you have money. If you don't have the money and the budget to spend on your marketing, then you have to put in the work and spend your time doing all those things yourself. Looking at your budget, we don't typically go down the path like a lot of marketing people will say that it needs to be 1%, 0.5%, 2% of your total revenue. We just look at it from the standpoint of what have you previously allocated your marketing towards. If you say it's 0, we can give you a good idea of what the minimum should be on an annual basis. For basic things, regardless of company size, if you're gonna be hiring an outside agency, you should be looking at a minimum of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year to bring on an agency to do a lot of this heavy lifting for you. As a baseline, if you have no money, you have no budget, and you wanna do it all yourself and do the work, you can certainly do that, but some of these points we're gonna go through you wouldn't be able to do yet. Once you've got your team figured out, your budget, the bigger question to ask are what are your goals with marketing and what is the timeline? That's gonna dictate how fast you need to do things, and that's gonna dictate how much you need to do them. If you're trying to go from 10 million to 20 million in 2 years, timeline is short and the goal is high. So you have to take that in consideration. If you've got lofty goals of high growth potential, then you either need to spend a ton of time marketing or you need to spend a ton of money having somebody else do it for you. Taking ownership of that and really setting some realistic things, then you can go in and figure out which one of these parts of the marketing strategy can I do up front to get me towards that goal, because everything has short-term results and some things have more longer-term plays. And that's what we're gonna be going into now. The website, that is the backbone of your marketing. Doesn't matter if you're doing advertising, SEO, making content, making videos, doing social, anything that you're doing, even if you're doing trade shows, everybody's gonna go back to your website. If your website is old school, outdated, it's got the box center line content, it's not full width, you don't have big graphics into it, you don't have video on it, if it is old school, you need to set aside some budget. You can get away with it for right now, but let's say in the next 12 months, you need to set aside a minimum of $20,000, $30,000 and up from there. Can you get a website done for cheaper? Absolutely you can. You can get freelancers or really small agencies of 1 or 2 or 3 people that can build you a site for $5,000 to $10,000. That would be good, but it's not gonna be great. And if you're gonna invest some money, if you're gonna spend 10 and get something that's good, you really are only gonna be doing this every few years at most. You need to spend the extra money and allocate the budget to be able to have a great website that's done correctly. The other side of that is your SEO. SEO is a long-term play. It's not something that changes overnight. A lot of times, people that do websites, especially when you get into small agencies or freelancers, they build a website, but they don't do the on-page SEO. If they don't do the on-page SEO with that, then it's gonna be even slower. You're gonna have a new site launch, it's gonna be out there for years, then you're gonna come to an agency, they're gonna audit your site and say your SEO sucks, you need to make all these changes to your on-page. Then that starts to cycle over again to where it could be 6, 9, 12 months before you're ranking high for those main keywords and themes that you're trying to go after. If you don't have the budget, that's okay for it for right now. Roll up your sleeves and basically do the bootstrap way of marketing and put in the work, but you need to let your bosses know, or if you are the boss, set aside some resources financially for next year or in the future to be able to really tackle that website and make it great. All right, now we can do some social organic. So we're looking at social media. The main players to look at is gonna be LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. If you're in B2B, only primarily looked at LinkedIn. Do not pay attention to Twitter anymore, in my opinion. It's a waste of time. It's too noisy. People are just throwing out those 140 characters, throwing up hashtags. You don't typically get a lot of engagement. Any company that we've come across that says they do Twitter, I look at their feed for the last 6 months and they're posting regularly, all the time, every day, but there's no engagement. There's no retweets, there's no likes, there's no comments or anything. You're much better off with just dropping Twitter as a whole and focusing your efforts in the areas where you can actually get the attention, to where it's underpriced attention. So if you're B2B, do LinkedIn. If you're B2B, you can do Facebook, but try and focus more around the culture of your business, especially if you're a larger organization, and the employees at the company. That's more for Facebook. But from a prospecting standpoint, sales, you really need to focus on that platform for it. Instagram, if you're doing cool stuff, you can throw it up on Instagram. If you're B2C, obviously you can use it on Instagram going direct to consumer. But again, you're talking about an image or a video, a hook, you can do advertising on it, but it's gonna be somewhat minimal. So you gotta look at all three of those platforms and decide, can you pay somebody else to do this for you and manage it and produce content that you can then help distribute and get eyes on it, or do you have to do it yourself? Then focus on only one to start and really go deep into it. So now you need to do it on a repetitive standpoint. This is not something that you can do on a once a week basis. You need to do this every single day, posting something every single day to try and get attention out there. It's gonna be more difficult with Facebook and Instagram. You gotta use hashtags because people aren't gonna see it. If you have no followers on your company page, there's no way for you to push it out. So at a minimum, 10, 15, 20 hashtags on every single post. As you post it, you're gonna get a lot of people that like it, respond, and maybe follow your page, especially if you're on Instagram. You'll get followers. It's kind of like Twitter. You get instant followers, but then give it a day or two later, and 95% of those people drop off because they're just following you, so you follow them back. And that's a tactic that's been around for the last 5 years. From Facebook and Instagram, that's how you're gonna grow it organically. Now on LinkedIn, post something to that company page, but focus on your personal LinkedIn connections, build those up. That's something you can do every single day, minimum of 2 hours. If you're B2B, post something to your company page and then share it on your personal page, or just share it on your personal page directly, whatever the piece of content is, whether it's an image, a graphic, a link to a video, a link to an article. But you have to every single day, multiple hours, going back to that time or money. You said you don't have the money, you do have the time, you gotta prove it at this point. So going in there and increasing your connections, watch one of our videos on how to do that with LinkedIn prospecting, but that's gotta be an everyday thing. Otherwise, you're just pushing the end goal out that much further. Don't say that you don't have the time to do it. Don't say that you don't know how to do it. You can watch some of our videos. You can just Google search it. The tactics are out there, but now it's time to actually do the work. All right, now we're looking at content marketing. 3 different ways to do content: written, audio, and video. Figure out what are you good at. If you're a good writer, then you need to write, because people are still reading it. If you're good on video and you like doing videos, then make videos, because that's gonna have a higher level of engagement, because right now people are paying more attention to video. From an audio standpoint, you've got podcasts. Figure out what are you good at, and then you need to go and do it. It does not have to be fancy. If you're gonna write an article, keep it short, sweet, and simple. If you're gonna shoot a video, do it with your phone. Whichever method that you can to get some piece of content out. Ideally, you can mix it up. But if you're not comfortable with video, then don't do it at all. But if you can do video and write, then that's gonna be the best way to get both sides of that coin. Some people like to read, some people like to watch, and you can play to basically both of those markets. But again, going with consistency, this has to be something on a regular basis. Start with once every couple of weeks, then go down to once every week, then go to once every few days. It's just repetitiveness, because people are gonna start to want to see that content that you're creating. Now again, if you've got the budget in mind and you can spend money, you can have somebody else do that for you. If you have $0, do it yourself, or have somebody at your company if you can. Pick somebody on your team, or somebody that maybe isn't in the marketing and sales department. Pick an engineer that you have, pick somebody in some sort of production environment, whatever it is that you guys are doing. pick somebody that can write content, or maybe have a group of 7 different people that are all gonna write one piece of content a month or one piece of content a quarter. That's the best way to spread it out if you don't have the budget to spend on other people doing it for you, but it has to be consistent. Now, the previous points about social media, that's going to be your distribution source. Since we're going old school and going organic in some of these things and going no budget, you need to then push that content out using social, push it out on all 3 of those if you can, and then start to track that engagement and start to engage with your audience and try and get some sort of likes, comments, follows, things like that. Pay-per-click, advertising, lots of different options out there, lots of different things that you can do. From a publication standpoint, you can do a lot of advertising with magazines, with trade shows, with anything online, with articles or things like that. If we're looking at the basics, you're gonna have Google AdWords, which is broken into targeting and retargeting, search and retargeting. And then you've got the social media side of it. Those are really the 2 different ways that we look at it. YouTube pre-roll isn't gonna be for a lot of people, so we'll leave that off because we don't have a budget. So looking at those 2 options, Google AdWords is gonna be the cheapest. It's gonna be minimum of maybe 20, 40, 50 cents per click. Maximum, if you're getting crazy with some of your search phrases, you can get $30, $40 per click on some of the really highly competitive ones. But for the most part, you're in the couple buck range. If you're B2B service, then it's gonna be, LinkedIn is gonna be the best bang for your buck because you can get so strategic, which we have articles written about exactly how to do that. So definitely check those out. You can get so hyper-focused and strategic, but it is expensive. LinkedIn knows that they've got you in their grip, so that way they're charging you a lot of money on that click. You can target directly into, I want these 100 companies and I only want these job functions or these seniority levels or these titles at these companies, and that's the only people I want to see this advertisement. You cannot get more focused on that. You cannot do that on Facebook because Facebook has data based on the behavior of people, but Facebook does not have data on their clean data on their actual title and things like that. But LinkedIn's expensive. So if you're on a budget, I would say don't really focus on the PPC side right now. Start getting the things that you can do organically first. And then once you start to see some traction and you're bought in and sold on the idea of investing into marketing, then you can tie in some light PPC. If you're gonna go down, the cheapest route is gonna be spending a couple $100 on Google AdWords, being strategic, ideally finding an agency that can do it. If not, you don't have the money, you have the time. Go to YouTube, do some searching, go to Google, do some searching, watch videos from people that are gonna teach you exactly how to do Google AdWords on a shoestring budget, and then manage that yourself. If you have a small budget, it's not anything that's completely overwhelming. So that would be a place to start if you have a little bit of money to spend, or if you don't feel comfortable with Google AdWords standpoint, LinkedIn, once you have enough of a budget, looking at probably 1,000 minimum just from a click standpoint. If you can do all the graphics and create everything yourself, great internally. If you can't and you need to hire an agency and that agency is gonna manage it, expect to spend a few $1,000s a month between click cost and management fees and the creative and doing all the graphics. Those main areas of PPC, that's something that you can do down the road. For right now, we would recommend just focusing on the organic. Now, we've reviewed a lot of different ways that you guys can go about this with where to start. It all comes down to your budget and your team and your timeline and what you're trying to do with your goals. So you can go down a lot of different paths, but you need to pick a couple and start there. If you've got a big team, start auditing what you guys have been doing, go through some strategy conversations, talk to agencies like ours to figure out with what you're doing, what your budget has, how should you best spend that money. If you are willing to hire on an outside agency, you should be looking to spend about minimum $5,000 a month to get them to do some of this for you. If you're talking pay-per-click campaigns and things like that, it's gonna be north from there. But at a minimum basis, $4,000 or $5,000 to start and have an agency come in and take this over for you. If you've gotten some value out of this, hit that like button. If you got a question, leave a comment, and we'll see you on the next one. Quarter of? Yeah. We always say quarter 2.